Awesome. So thank you, Linda, and the CDI College. So this is Praveen Srinivasan with uLawPractice. I have my support staff online as well, and it gives us pleasure, and thank you so much for this opportunity to present to you uLaw, our capabilities, and how best we serve the compliance and the legal practitioners' needs in the country of Canada, and how we can hopefully serve your students and prospective clients. As I was saying before, what we've done well is we've taken the single cloud-based platform. So it's a single system. You don't have to jump between systems to accommodate everything that you need to accomplish. It manages everything core to the practice management needs of your business. So managing your clients, managing your matters, managing the files, however you like to call it. It's tightly integrated in a single system to manage all of your legal accounting needs. So for that client, for that matter, when you have a retainer put in, it automatically, and I repeat, it automatically generates the trust ledger that needs to reflect each and every financial transaction that touches that file. And all the other compliance requirements, right from journals to ledgers to reconciliations, and the components of legal compliance is built right in. And the third component of it, which every business owner needs, is the ability for her or him to manage all of your business expenses. So from a business accounting perspective, we also allow you in the same platform to manage all of your office expenses. So when you become a legal practitioner, you of course would have your law society fees as an expense. You probably purchase a computer to do your job, so that's an expense. So managing those expenses, managing revenue, managing compliance, all in a single unified system is kind of what we've done. Okay? So you can check more information about us on uLaw.io. You can really get down to understanding, and we pretty much demystify the whole pricing. So as a student who's just graduated, you automatically qualify for our lowest price, which is one of the most cost-effective prices in the context of legal practice management. And please feel free to look at a lot of the reviews that fellow paralegals and lawyers have left about us. And of course, we teach and are very proud to be associated with many institutions similar to CDI in teaching this legal accounting, talking about the practice, talking about a platform. Okay? Now, for purposes of setting a context so that I can walk you through real quick, I've used one of our presentations that we run for CPD sessions that pretty much tells you as a legal practitioner the core aspects of managing files and the important needs that you need to manage and maintain and stay on top of. Okay, so here are some of the 7 top professional obligations that we think at uLaw are critical. And not only at uLaw, these are actually excerpts taken out of the bookkeeping compliance for the law societies. So having these top 7 items taken care of should essentially give you a good handle for what your life is going to be as a legal practitioner. Okay? So we start off with the client intake, service, and communication. Here are some of the simple professional obligations. So let's say you've graduated, you need to move on to be a legal practitioner. Of course, you may be looking to work for a lawyer, work for a law firm. You know, understanding this from that perspective is also critical. But if you're also going to run your own practice, then all of this becomes even more important for you to keep in mind. So let's assume you have a prospective client who wants you to represent her or him in any of the areas of practices that you may choose to represent, practice. So small claims, landlord and tenant board, right? You could have accident benefits. There could be, various different practices for that matter. In all of these cases, one of the first fundamental steps is how do you intake a prospective client? So what I'm showing you here, and what you're hopefully able to see, is the cloud-based aspect of uLaw. Okay, so let me sign out. So this is what you're presented with. In fact, if CDI would like to partner and give us an opportunity to partner with you, we provide this access to all students as well. so they can learn the platform as they're studying the concepts. So this is a simple cloud-based system. You have your own username and password. We highly protect our data. We're very anal about protecting this data and securing data. So we have a 256-bit encryption, cloud-enabled. We're hosted in Canada. We also cater to two-factor authorization that further protects the integrity of your data that you store. And once you've entered your username and password, you're pretty much logged in to your own version of the platform. When I say own version, this is your data, this is your clients, everything that's relevant to your business. So the dashboard is just a simple and fast way for you to maneuver and navigate within our system. But I'll draw your attention to an important starting point, which is the contacts that you see here on the top left. The contacts in uLaw is essentially where you store all of the information of the person and the companies that you deal with on day-to-day legal life. These contacts could be your clients. Most probably they are, most predominantly they are, but you could have contacts of various different nature. If you're dealing with a small claims matter, for that matter, and let's say you're representing the plaintiff, the opposing party, the defendant, and the defendants, and there could be multiple defendants, and their legal representative, for example, could be contacts in your database. And we repurpose all that information as we automate a lot of the court forms for forms mostly in Ontario, and we've just started with British Columbia. So I'll get to that in a second. But the contacts is simply where you store your client and other party information, making it easy for you to repurpose that. So you could just say add new client, and this could be an individual, this could be a business. So let's say this is, okay. And the Law Society does request that you provide a source of contact, which is how did Jasmine get to know your business, and logged in as Roger Moore. So we could say this was a Facebook ad, making it easier for you to know where you can put your marketing dollars. And let's say this is an address. Okay. You could, of course, always add multiple addresses. But only one of them becomes, oh. Okay, I'm not sure what I did, but I may have, oh God. Dams, do you mind taking over? I think I may have touched a certain button that's not allowing me to move my mouse right now. Oh, crap. Hey, Dams or Gayatri, do you mind just taking over just for a quick second? For whatever reason, I'm unable to navigate my mouse. Not sure what happened. And I can talk through this as you enter the information. Thank you about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's perfect. You can just log in as Roger. So this is another cool way for us to utilize the same account to log in. So I have my support staff who's using a totally different computer, right? And so we'll just go back to contacts. I didn't save that information, so let's just try and um, reestablish the contacts. So we're just entering another contact, Jason Albert. We'll just add a source of contact. We'll just say Facebook or something like that. Yeah, that should do it. I mean, anything should fly right now. So guys, to go ahead and save that, and I think I should be okay to. So once you have saved all that information is now saved into our database, okay? And you could see how we're now storing that information, Jason Albert, the same information that we added. You can always edit this information. You can go and type in any further information you may have. You can add multiple addresses. But this is really your starting point, okay? And thanks, Gayatri. I'll take this over from now. I'm going to use the same Jason Albert. Okay, so what we've been able to show you is how multiple individuals can now, so here's the Jason Albert that Gayatri had entered in her system. So it's truly showing you the cloud capability and how real time this is. So she used a different computer in a different city, and I'm using the same information. I'm able to now work on this. So I'll say this is Mr. And there you go. Now, it's a big part of your responsibility. As soon as you've taken any client information, the Law Society needs you to ensure that you've taken as much as information about that client. And one of the immediate next steps that you do before you can even create a file, an important step is what we call as a conflict check. And this is to ensure that there are no conflicts in representing this person. You may have represented someone else who's a relative or maybe a friend, and you may have some undue advantage of certain data, and hence the Law Society wants you to make sure that there's no conflict. In uLaw, you can be rest assured that there is a compliance need that needs to be met. It's already available for you to take action on within the product. So right away, you could go in and say, I want to check if there are any conflicts in representing Jason Albert. And you can see this is the beauty of the cloud. Behind the scene, it's doing a parallel processing of checking for any conflicts across the database. Because this is a practice database, you can see there's a lot of information. As that's going on, you can do other things. You could generate a source of contact report, or you can even generate envelopes or envelopes, right? With some basic information about your firm, the client's information. And here is the conflict search report. So what uLaw has done essentially now is it's taken that client, Jason, it's reviewed if there are any Jasons in the database, that is in your own database, that is, of previous client instances that may be related to it. So you can see first name conflicts, some last name conflicts because there's a Jason word in the last name. And there's a few Ryan Masons who sound like Jason that we now help you. We're able to pick up a JSON similar to JSON. And we also date stamp it as per the compliance need. Now you can now make an informed decision. Or if you want a more granular conflict screen, you could say, I want to also understand if I've ever created a matter for someone like Jason. Have I ever come across a Jason in some other matters? So you can go one step further and get complete picture of this individual Jason Albert and how prudent it is to represent him. Okay? Now, once you've done the basic due diligence, you make the decision, the informed decision, whether you want to move forward with the next step, which is creating a file for Jason. Let's assume Jason has come to you for representation in a small claims matter, right? Maybe a neighbor dispute or something like that nature, right? So the next step right away that you would do, so we've done the detailed call, we've done the conflict check. This is where we move into discussing the matter and the details of the matter, starting with your engagement or retainer letter. That really is becoming your proposal to the client, saying, this is who we are, this is how we can represent you, and by the way, this is the fee structure, right? This is the retainer agreement, if there is one, and this is how you would envision billing them for your service. Now, this is very critical that you set these expectations ahead of time so that there is no conflict with the client at a later time. So here is a more advanced conflict search. So you can see now the difference. This only talks about the first name, last name. This one goes one step further and talks about specific matters that you have previously created. Okay? Now, if let's say you're not able to take all this information of Jason Albert over the phone or in person as it used to be before, we've introduced a brand new feature called the client portal. And this allows you to send an encrypted link to a prospective client who can then go ahead and fill in that information at their own time, and it automatically saves it just like how we did for Jason. And I'll get back to it in a second. Okay? But I want to move next into the matter. When you click on the matter button in uLaw, it allows you to create a brand new file or a matter for this specific client, Jason. Now, this is a configurable drop-down where you can decide the various different practices that you are planning to represent clients in, various practices that you want to run your business. And we spoke about small claims. Let me say this is a small claims matter. Let's say Jason versus Michael. Okay. We have spell checks. Now, let me set the context. We've got a file going, and we've got a basic understanding of what the type of matter is. But here's where uLaw also helps, especially new practitioners, take advantage of some best practices. So if you go under our document generation, right, we have pretty much every possible document that you need to get started. Okay? Starting with the retainer letters. So if you really go into our retainer samples, you can see there's quite a few examples. But you can also generate them in Word documents that are also specific to certain areas of practices. And we download it in a Word document. It's more advantageous because it gives you the best practices pitch, but you can also tweak them beyond this. You can see it's already entered basic information such as Jason versus Michael, neighbor dispute. It also has the file number embedded, which is a unique number. It has all of the legal practitioner's information. It has automatically done a word merge of the client information. And here comes some basic text. And I can make this into there you go. And there are many such samples that our clients utilize, right? So you can have this signed, you can electronically send this via email, so you can do all that cool stuff. And I'll tell you, there's quite a few examples of it. So we have contingency samples, we have hourly, as you can see, we have documents right from your master letterhead, general business letter, all the way to even client intake forms that are specific to provinces. So if you're looking to practice in the province of Quebec, we can help you with that because we are bilingual built in. Okay. Now, for whatever reason, if this matter were to be non-engaged at this particular time, because that could be a possible step that could happen in this matter, right? We also have a letter for that. So you could go ahead and generate that non-engagement letter. Maybe the person did not move forward with the file. Maybe there was a conflict that you found out at a later time. Maybe they didn't pay you the retainer. There could be many reasons why you decide to non-engage. And here's a great example of a non-engagement letter. This letter is to inform you that will not represent you in the matter, has all the information, and you just sign this and ensure that you sent this to Jason. So all I'm trying to showcase to you here, in almost every possible workflow step that you would take as a legal practitioner in Canada or a legal practitioner wherever you practice, the basic aspects of legal practice management is covered every step of the way within our product. What is it that you have to do is you just have to spend the time to work with our friendly support staff to learn these product features, which is something that you have to do anyways with any product that you plan to use. And our support and all the work that we do to help you onboard into the platform is completely free of charge. So why not take best advantage of that? Right. Now let's agree we've signed an agreement. Let's say it's a retainer letter. We've signed an initial retainer for about $700. The immediate next step, once you've determined the collateral for fees, once you've signed the agreement, is to deposit that retainer into an appropriate trust account. This is a very critical law society compliance. If you've got a retainer, you don't put that into your operating account. You put that into a special account called the trust account, which you probably have learned. Now in uLaw, we want to mimic your real life bank accounts. And hence, if you look at our chart of accounts, we start you off with some basic accounts, but you can of course add more. But this is how you can mimic your real life account. So let's say you're banking with TD. You can give us the exact, the banking number or the account number rather, and tell us which account you're going to be dealing with when we talk about pool trust account. Likewise, like any accounting software would have, we have all the chart of accounts right from assets to expenses. We also give you the ability to store a placeholder to mimic your real life accounts in uLaw. And the reason for that is because let's say the client has paid you that retainer. You need to tell the accounting system that you've got that money and where you put that money, right? So in uLaw, it's very so simple. You can either follow the English words, so you could say retainer, or you can follow the money by clicking on where the money is going into or where the money is leaving. So everyone learns software in their own way that they're acclimatized to. Let's say it's a new retainer. You just click the button, give us the basic details, and we're not asking all this information because we like it. We're asking all this information because each and every data that you capture here goes into a corresponding appropriate law society document. For example, the method, the reference number, the account. is spread across the ledgers and journals that you have to generate, which we generate for you automatically. So let's say today, this client gave us $565, or let's say $665, through an electronic fund transfer or maybe through an email transfer. We'll put a email reference number. And let's say this goes into my CIBC trust account. And I can give the client a receipt right away, which is an important step to do. And you hit apply. So that's the step right away. Of course, in real life, you have to take that money because it's an email transfer. Maybe it got deposited into your trust account. But if, let's say, they paid you via check, it's your responsibility to take that check and deposit it into the real account. Okay? uLaw, like every other accounting system, is looking to follow through on what's really happened in your real life. And here it's a trust retainer receipt. Okay? You can have various different templates. You can reprint that if you like. You could choose from different colors, different templates. Has all the information that the Law Society expects you out of a retainer receipt. Who was it for? Who was it from? What was the reason for this? How much was the amount? How was it paid? It's all available, including the date. Okay? So you've signed a retainer agreement. You've got money into your trust account, and you've given the client a trust receipt. Linda, at this particular time, I can pause if there are any questions at all, or if you like, I can just continue to go down this flow. So please use the chat window if you have any specific questions at this time. Or I can just keep continuing if you like. Never mind, I'll continue to go through. Okay, so we've gone through where I'm using this presentation so it's easier for you to follow through, right? Now comes to file management. This is a critical obligation that the Law Society talks about. In uLaw, every file number, as per Law Society's needs, is unique, cross-indexed, and easily searchable. If you come into our quick view, you can search for that file number right here, Jason versus Michael. Or you can just type in, oh, I remember talking about this dispute matter. There it is. You can search for any information as long as you know a word or something related to that. So if you know that the name of the client is Jason, you can type that in. There it is. Or if you know the file number, you can put that in as well. Okay? And then clicking on it takes you to some basic information, or you can go right into the matter. Now, the next steps within a file management is managing all the dockets and disbursements and the type of billing. So this could be time and material, which is billable time. Could be a flat rate or a fixed. It could be fixed and expenses or disbursements. So there's many different ways in which you could be billing your client. And we accommodate them all. I'll take you a simple example. So you could have an initial client meeting. You put in as much as information in the description. Right? Let's say we do all of this. You can beautify this as much as you want. And you can say, I've spent 30 minutes doing it. We capture both the time that you spent on it and the actual time that you're billing so that we can give you the P&L of every docket. You can decide what rates that you're going to be billing this at, and it's all part of our settings. Okay. So most often what we found is people go with what's called as a flat rate. So they don't necessarily charge by every docket. Sure thing. So here's what we call as matter events. So I think there's a question about redoing this again. So matter events, disbursements, rate, these are all tabs within a matter. Okay? And matter events or events in uLaw are the dockets. Could be billable or non-billable. That's left to you. But these are dockets and items that you're looking to capture. Okay? Now what I did was I entered the title, initial client meeting, and I entered the description. I clicked on it, and I've entered all this information. Now the billable time is the amount of time that you spend. So for 30 minutes, if you are charging them $400 an hour, if I were to save this, it's going to take 30 minutes multiplied by the $400 per hour. So that's $200 worth of effort. And it's going to use the provincial taxes. Just give me 1 second, please. So as I was saying, it's going to take the provincial taxes of $26 for the province of Ontario and add that as part of the billability. Okay? Now you may have disbursements to add to this. And disbursements are expenses that you pay for on behalf of a client's matter. So you could go ahead and say disbursements. Let me save this. You can go ahead and pay for disbursements right from here. But the more common way I've seen billing done is a flat rate, where once the matter is done, it could be something like this. So they pretty much add everything into one bucket. Okay. And let's say overall you spend 2 hours on this matter, you can just charge them a flat fee of $500. So that's another style that I've seen people docketing or billing. Keep in mind, all of this follows how you have signed the retainer agreement with this particular client. Whatever the retainer agreement talks about as to how you plan to bill this person, this document we spoke about, that's how you go about that. And you can see there's our support staff is also continuing to add in the chat window some information about dockets and disbursements, right? Disbursements are nothing but client-related expenses. So let's say you've got a $500 overall matter for legal fees. Now I'll go ahead and add a disbursement. So I'll say add new disbursement. And let me say it's a application fee. And typically these court fees, application fees are tax exempt. Let's say it's a $100 application fee. I'm not sure about the exact amount. Now, question is, who did you pay this to? So this could be Ministry of Finance. Where did this money come out of? And if you're writing a check uLaw can actually help you print that check too. So you would actually get the checkbook from the bank. You would leave the check leaf on the printer that you have, and you can basically print this document, the PDF document. And you can see your information, the check. This would get printed on the check when you leave it on the printer, and a couple of remittances. Okay. All right, so now you've gone through the next phase of this particular client, done the client intake, conflict search, created a matter, signed the retainer agreement, paid the retainer receipt, you've docketed, you've dispersed, and now it's time to invoice. That's pretty much one of the last steps that you would take as part of that file management. Let me go back to my presentation real quick. This is where I slowly step into the financial management of it. So we've looked at the proper fee scheduling, we've docketed, dispersed based on the retainer agreement. Now comes into the next phase of it. How do you make the money? So far, you've just done all the work. How do you make the money? Even though you have a retainer in place, which allows you to safeguard your money, you still have to do what's called as the invoice. And uLaw allows you to do multiple choices. You can either do pre-bill, you can review it once. You want to make sure that it's the right thing, it looks good. You can see there's an application fee, there's a new retainer, and let's say maybe you don't like this. You can go in and say, all right, I'm going to use a Swift Blue. You can change the date. Who gets the email every time you generate that preview? Let's generate that. This looks slightly better. You've got all the information, the client, the amount due, the date of the invoice, which is very critical. And you can notice that we don't have an invoice number for a pre-bill. So pre-bill is just a preview for your eyes only so that you can be confident, make sure that you see it and you like it. You can see everything is in the docket is in one bucket. And this is a running bill. So if you were to send this to the client, they'd be really happy because you've done a thorough job. Okay. Okay. So you like this, you go back and you actually generate a complete invoice. So pre-bill, making sure that everything looks good. If there are any changes you have to make, you can do that. And then you create the invoice. Once you've created the invoice, you have done the official document that's necessary for you to make your money. In the case of a retainer invoice, so here's the invoice, and I'll show this to you real quick. So the invoice actually has an invoice number, a unique reference number. It does not have the preview watermark on it. And you can, compress this into 2 pages, 1 page, just a summary, however you like it. You can put in a little note into it. You can put in your own letterhead. Okay. Now there's one final step. So hopefully if you are taking notes, I think what we've done is after the matter, we've docketed, dispersed. Now we've invoiced. Because there's a retainer, the 665, you invoiced that, right? Now this money is still sitting in your trust account. Now you have the license now to move that money from the trust account into your operating account. Only when you move the money into your operating account are you actually getting the money in your own hands. Till then, it's sitting in the trust. So often people forget there's one last step, which is the pending trust transfer. And uLaw makes it so easy. All you got to do is click on this question mark, and we tell you right away, right? What is in red is a step that you have missed or you need to take. So you can click on it. This is where we keep you Law Society compliant. The compliance that the auditors and Law Society is really looking for, right, is that you do not by any means overdraw on your trust account, right? So you can just randomly move $1,000. That's where you get in trouble. You need to show for why you're moving a certain amount. You can move just $565, or you can move just $100, or you can combine these two and transfer the entire $665 that you've earned out of this matter. But you cannot move a random number of 500 or 200 or 300. You could, but when you get audited or when the time comes to reconciliation, you're going to get caught in the sense where you really don't know what the money is there for, how much you've moved. It gets too convoluted. So now we say, all right, let me move that money of $665 that I've just earned from the trust account into my general account. And I could write myself a check. Or if you're going to be practicing in the province of Ontario, they have what's called as a Form 9A every time you do an electronic fund transfer. Right? If you're sitting out of country and you're doing this electronically, which you could, depending on which jurisdiction you're practicing, each jurisdiction has its own forms that you need to comply with. Ontario calls it Form 9A. Other provinces call it as an electronic requisition form. So you could have different forms. Again, look, we filled pretty much all the information you need. You do not have to enter all of this. And here is a Form 9A readily available for you. So going into the file management, we've done every systematic step that needs to be done to manage this file. Let's say there's a court form in this matter. This was a small claims matter, right? And we said this is Jason versus Michael. This is where we use what's called as an additional party. We can add a party, and let's say this was the defendant. uLaw pretty much has all of these different party names. Oops. And let's say there's some Michael in our database, Michael Chang. I'll save Michael Chang as the defendant, and I can also add legal representative of Michael Chang. Right? I'm sure they have a paralegal or may have a paralegal working for them or a lawyer. Representative of the opponent. And let's call that person Steffi Jones. Now, based on the information stored in the contacts, we're bringing the contacts in as relationships into this matter as parties. And now if I go into my court forms, and if I do a small claims court form, and let's say I do a 7A, and what we do is we pretty much update all of the different court forms. Oops, sorry. Let me see if I can get back to this real quick later on. I'm just going to complete my flow with the financial aspects of it. Give me 1 second here, please. From a perspective of the financials, which is really the next step, what we've done is we've moved the money from trust to general. Now comes time for you to do your monthly work. your monthly reconciliations, your monthly ledgers and journals. And all of that in uLaw is just a click of a button. In almost every screen, you would see what's called a compliance. Okay, so here's a monthly compliance. For example, if I did the trust ledger, I'm sure you've read about this or you're probably going to read about it soon. You are required to generate reconciliation statements, and following that, the ledgers, journals, and any provincial documents that you may need to provide, such as Form 9A. As long as you've entered the data on time, and as long as you've done your reconciliation, generating these reports is just a click of a button. I'll give you an example. So here's a trust ledger, and let me do this for the month of June. Okay, let me say monthly. Okay, and let me download the trust ledger. And you can see there, this one Mr. Jason Albert is the only client in this month. Okay, 6th of June. And let's take a quick look at this document. You did not create this document, you just generated this document. And you didn't have to do this manually. But you can see we've captured, based on the work that you did in the matter, right? If you remember, we received the $665. We had an invoice for the $665, and then we did trust transfer of that $665. That's exactly what's converted or translated into the Law Society specific compliant document called as a trust ledger, automatically. There's $665 that came in. How did they pay you? They pay you through an email transfer. And on the same day, you transferred $665 into your general account. Why did you do that? Because you had done that because of the legal invoice that you generated of 3361. This is your trust ledger. Let me show you when we do a general ledger. Clients general. And I'll do it for the same date range. Because this is the other side of the house. And if you notice here, right, you had invoiced client Jason Albert $565, which is $500 plus $65 of taxes. So you have asked or you've claimed taxes from this client or received taxes from this client. That's the running balance. Then there was a $100 disbursement for an application fee. Right? If you remember, we did that, making it $665. And finally, you transferred money from the trust account into the general account. The one is the fees billed, the other is the money coming in. Okay? So the general ledger clearly states that you billed $665, you received $665, leaving your general ledger at a balance for this client at zero. In addition to this, as a subliminal byproduct, if you noticed, we also do your taxes, your business taxes, that is. So for the month of June, if I were to generate my HST document, notice here that the $65 that we received from this client, Jason Albert, is automatically captured. So for the month of June, you pretty much owed $65. I can do the same HST for a date range. I could say for the quarter. If I do it for the quarter ending June, this is a different picture. Now, you owe the government $732 because uLaw captures HST received, HST paid, and where could have you paid HST? These are across the disbursements that you make, the office expenses that you have, and that balances with the HST you received. Where do you receive HST? From your clients through the invoices. If you notice, for Jason Albert, that's $65 as part of that HST received bucket. So what's critical for you to keep in mind is there is just one system where you did a client intake, you created a matter, and you went through the typical workflow as needed by any legal firm to make money and do the work. As you did the work and told the system what you've done with regards to financial transaction, we have automatically, for you, converted each of those transactions into appropriate trust, general, and even jurisdictional tax documents. We don't end there. As part of the compliance needs, you also have journals, you have your different fee book, expense book, and we do it all. And I'll take the last minute just to show you the office expenses because I know we've reached the top of the hour here. Under our accounts section, you are also able to manage your office expenses. So let's say you're a legal firm, you're a business. And as part of the office supplies, let's say you purchased A4 paper for about $200. And we automatically calculate the taxes that you may have paid. Of course, depending on where you paid the taxes. You can even override these taxes if you paid this, for example, in Dallas, right? And let's say you paid this to Amazon Canada out of your general account. You could have also paid this out of your own pocket or of your personal money, which you can also use. Or if you paid this out of your business money, your general account, you can tell us how you've done that. So let's say I'm submitting a $200 expense where you have now paid $23 of taxes. I've entered it. If I look at my general ledger, let me even do my expense book, make it easier. And I'm going all over the place here, but keep in mind the expense book is a combination of client-related expenses as well as your own office expenses. And that's why having a single system do this for you is critical. You don't want to use a separate system for managing your client-related expenses, a separate system to manage your office-related expenses. And there you go. These are the two distinct expenses. You had an application fee of $100, if you remember, for Jason, with no tax liabilities. And now you've had a purchase A4 paper where you paid $23, and here's the expense. These are the two expenses that have occurred today, and it's clearly reported in this Law Society compliance document. Okay? Same thing applies for fee book. Same thing applies for Form 9As. So compliance is built right into the product, and that's one of the top reasons why people use the product. And beyond compliance, it's the ease of use and the peace of mind that they get, because all the information you need regarding your business, both client-related and your office-related, are in one single system. Okay? So here's the $65 that you received, and here's the $23 that you paid for purchasing that A4 paper. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to ask if you have any questions, because, again, of course, we have our calendar. We have a full-fledged analytical capability right built in. Or if you want to know whether your P&L mode for the month of June You don't have to ask your bookkeeper or your accountant. You can do this yourself. It will tell you the answers rather to all the questions that you may have. How much of money did I make? How did I make it this month? Fee book per category. I made it out of small claims and through my disbursements. How did I do it this entire quarter? Compare this month to the quarter, they say, right? You can view this as a pie chart. We have it right on our phone. You can download our uLaw app on your phone and consume the same information. You can do this for your expenses. If you're looking to reduce the amount of expenses, if you had office supplies for $200, how is this performing month to quarter? You can see office supplies was $539, 26% of the overall quarterly expense. It's already 66% for this month. So maybe you want to think about office supplies and curtail the amount of expense you have. So I'll pause right now and ask and wait for any questions. And in fact, let me unmute this line. And I'll stop well, let me do this. Let me unmute. So Linda, do you have any? So if you want to use the chat window, and maybe everyone who's part of this webinar can just text us on the chat window any questions that you may have pertaining to the session that we've just had. Any questions at all? Was this too much information? Was this the right information? Again, just following each and every aspect of it, right? The next step of financial management. Then, of course, from a business management perspective, we're a cloud-based, 256-bit encrypted, secure software. It's hosted in Canada across our servers in Ottawa and in Montreal. So you can basically be accessing this from wherever you are. And if you notice, when I had that initial technical glitch, my colleague Gayatri was able to add a contact, Jason Albert, and I actually added the other contact, Jasmine Kaur, if you remember. And that's part of the recently modified contacts. And as part of the recently modified matters, you have Jason versus Michael. So if I can click on this, it gives me all the information I need about this matter. Okay. So please do ask any questions that you may have. So Linda, I think if you can use the chat window, that would be great. Okay. So if you want to kindly just mute your phone lines, that would help each and every one of you ask any questions. If you're not trying to use the chat window. Sorry, it's like, that's okay. That's not a good idea. Please do use the chat window. Just use the chat window to ask any questions. Hopefully that's easier. And it's not, yeah. Okay, if there's anything else, I mean, okay, I guess there's a question about the calendar. So yeah, so every task that you put in for yourself, both office related or otherwise, um, automatically shows up in the calendar. So for example, I can go in here and I could say uLaw webinar, right? So this is a personal calendar that I've just saved from 9 to 10 for this particular date. I may have something that's related to a matter, right? So let's say there's a docket. I could say initial client meeting. I could say third meeting, right? And you can see I can even add this to the matter, and I can search for the matter for Jason Albert, the neighbor dispute, and I can save a 30-minute docket, which is a pretty cool feature if you ask me. There's many more features in the platform that are so cool. It's easier for you to do many things, such as the scratch pad. You can docket across multiple matters at the same time. You didn't even have to know which matter. You could say call you can do it across all matters. And you can see here, you can hide the time dockets if you don't like them. You can show all of your time dockets. If I go into a particular matter, there it is, third meeting. But not only that, the calendar also integrates with our phone app. So if you download our app on your iOS or Android device, this would show up right on your phones, the uLaw app, which then integrates it with basically your phone device. No, I think now you could probably go and say you're busy on a specific national holiday, right? And that's a good point. I thought, Dams, maybe that's something we think about of having a calendar or holiday schedule. But today we don't have where you can import a holiday schedule right now. Any questions other than the calendar? So typically what our clients do is, they'd go into July 1st and just block up the whole day. Okay. So Linda, did you have any questions? Was this your time well spent and your students' time well spent? No, thank you. Greatly appreciate your time and Yeah, that's how we roll it here in uLaw. Whatever is important to our client is what's important to us. So thank you so much for being here. We're really happy to make this presentation. We are recording this, and we'll make sure we send you the link to this presentation. So thank you so much.